Hello and welcome to the Authentic Wednesday podcast. It is your host, Bianca Hughes. Yes, we're still on a podcast pause. However, I am not leaving you hanging and we do have some encore episodes. So this encore episode is the one I shared my story of having genital herpes. I had my friend Justin DeBalls interview me on this episode. It is really one of the top episodes. And I just want to share, I got so many texts from people I knew personally, emails, phone calls, DMs. I even ended up helping someone and coaching someone through their story of, shall I say, not their story, but just really coaching through someone of their recent diagnosis and helping them through that. We entitled Take Your Power Back. And that was great. That was fun. And just seeing the changes. So much came out of this episode that you're about to hear, where I'm sharing my story. And I remember being nervous at first when it came out, but once it came out, I was just so grateful because of the response and people needing to hear it and it being shared so many times. So we're going to go ahead and get into this conversation where I'm being interviewed, but sharing my story of genital herpes to help set so many people free. So let's get into the episode.
I don't feel like everyone needs to know, but I just feel like as I'm continuing to do my work on authenticity and be a leader in that and in vulnerability, I definitely feel like that's God will be like, you're going to be a really vulnerable person, that this is one of those things that needs to be said. And I feel like it's probably the biggest thing in the closet for me. I don't think anything else I'm really like private about. And I really want to be part of breaking that stigma of genital herpes and helping people release some of that shame.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Wednesday podcast. Each week, my guests and I share our vulnerable behind-the-scenes stories of giving ourselves permission to take off our masks, let go of our expectations, and embrace our own path of freedom and authentic connection. I'm your host, Bianca Hughes, a lover of authenticity and a licensed professional counselor in Georgia. Hello and welcome to the Authentic Wednesday podcast. I am your host, Bianca Hughes. And if it is your first time, welcome. And if it's not your first time, welcome back. As always, it is a pleasure to have you on this podcast. So today is episode 35, and this is a very important show personally for me. It's one of my biggest authentic moments on the show. I don't want to have a spoiler alert, so let's go ahead and get into the conversation as I have a dear friend, Justin DeBalls, helping me with this episode.
So everyone, today's episode is going to be a bit different. And it's going to be a bit different because I want to share a personal story with you guys. And I'm going to have a really good friend of mine and a business partner, Justin DeBalls, to interview me. Because I feel like it's, what shall I say, have a conversation. And I feel like it's a topic that needs two people in here to just kind of have the conversation. So he will be asking all the questions and I will be sharing today. So Justin, over to you.
Well, the ball is in my court. Let's get right down to it. So I am giving Bianca the space to share and talk about something that's very important to her. First off, let me say she's being very brave and she's being very strong in bringing this forward today. So Bianca, what would you like the world to know and what would you like to share with the good people today?
Yeah, I want to share with everyone, and this is something that I knew I would always share one day. I just didn't know when. But I want everyone to know that I have genital herpes. I know some people are like, what? And I have had this, gosh, I don't even know how long now. Maybe 18 years. When you hear my story, you'll hear why it's hard to kind of identify. But yeah.
18 years. Imagine living with something for 18 years and having to keep it bottled up. when engaging in conversations with people, especially on an intimate basis. Again, you're strong for bringing this forward. If I can ask, why bring it forward now? Why are you sharing?
Gosh, when you say it like that, it is bottled up. And I think that the weight was just too much in the sense that I don't feel like, and this is just not, I don't feel like everyone needs to know, but I just feel like as I'm continuing to do my work on authenticity and be a leader in that and in vulnerability, I definitely feel like that's God will be like, you're going to be a really vulnerable person, that this is one of those things that needs to be said. And I feel like it's probably the biggest thing in the closet for me. I don't think anything else I'm really like private about. And I really want to be part of breaking that stigma of genital herpes and helping people release some of that shame that comes along and ensure people are educated. Because, you know, if you're not educated, you're ignorant, and ignorant things happen and are said.
That's so true. That's so true. Without education, people tend to fall susceptible to ignorance significantly more. I heard you say you wanted to break that stigma surrounding genital herpes. And I love that you touched on education pertaining to it, because I think a lot of people don't understand the facts about genital herpes. Could you give us some facts about that?
Yeah, I'm not the facts expert, okay? I'm not this doctor. The facts are, you know, herpes, you know, we're talking about genital herpes, and people always sometimes forget that there is cold sores are a form of herpes.
That's true.
I learned today that shingles are a form of herpes. But I think the thing about genital herpes is because it's caught in something as intimate as sex is, you know, a lot of some of where the stigma comes. You know, let's just talk about it. You know, you get sores, breakouts. And I would say definitely at the beginning I got more. I don't get as many now. Of course, things like stress, the way I eat and take care of myself. I definitely believe in the power of prayer and things like that. Also have an impact on that. And so, gosh, I should have written down that statistic, but let me see.
By all means, you can look it up. From doing my own research, knowing what we were coming forward with today, I know I've seen that the numbers are much higher than people would ever imagine. And it's because of the various different types that there are out there, that the numbers of individuals that just have a form of herpes, it's much higher than people would imagine. Much higher.
Mm-hmm. So, like, it's so funny. You Google it and it says here, you Google genital herpes statistics, right? And it says here, very common.
Absolutely. Same thing. And it came up more than 3 million cases per year in the U.S. And when you think about the U.S. having a population of 300 million, then you realize 3 million people is 1% of the population. So 1% of the population gets this a year per year. It's more common than people realize, which is interesting considering the myths and the misconceptions and the stigma that surround it so prevalently when such a large population probably has it.
Yeah. And then I like what the CDC says. Genital herpes is a common STD, and most people with genital herpes infection do not know they have it.
I agree. You know what? I would believe that. I would actually believe that.
So, you know, we don't know because it's actually not tested on as an STD unless you request it.
I was going to say, you have to ask for it, don't you?
Yep. It's not a standard test. You have to request the test.
You have to actually seek out to see whether you have it. It's COVID all over again.
Well, yeah.
Yes, you got to look for it.
Yeah.
Because many people are going to be asymptomatic. I mean, because I'm looking up at the whole called the herpes simplex, which includes both the oral and the genital. And the statistics back it up that a lot of people may be dealing with it and don't even know.
Yeah.
And then when they discover that they have it, I can imagine the fear and a plethora of emotions that they probably go through.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you discover?
So this is why I said about the time. I remember going for to the gynecologist and just getting a regular checkup. And this is back in London. I remember them saying that, oh, what's that? I think you might have herpes, but I don't know, because
I love how they were super casual about it.
Yeah. And it wasn't really confirmed. And I was like, okay, well, what do I do with this? And so I guess I just was like, well, he didn't say yes and he didn't say no. And I was like, well, I choose no. That, I guess, would be denial. Which
is an appropriate response, actually.
Yeah, most people are going to be.
It's a very appropriate response. It's expected. If you were to be told that and you were, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So I think I may have been maybe 22 at the time, around that. 20.
That's about right. If you said 18 years.
Yeah, around
that. That's all I'm going to say, because I'm not finna say your age.
I say it all the time. Everyone knows. So around that age, I'm not going to be put numbers on it. And so I went into denial, but that weighed heavy on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have a sexual partner a boyfriend, and sexual partner or boyfriend. I'm trying to think who I told first. And when I told them, they was very receptive, because, well, I said to them, I didn't know, this is what was said. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I had this conversation, and I really didn't have any issues or any outbreaks or anything like that. And I remember at the time calling people and trying to find out, like, did you have anything or anything like that? Actually, I may have been younger than that. I may have been like 20. And
we'll say early 20s.
Yeah. And so and they were like, no. And that's another thing. I have felt guilty for not knowing where I got it from, but I don't feel like anyone needs to be, because you just don't know, like I'm saying. And if someone doesn't know they have it, they could be carrying it and shedding and not know.
Oh, and if I can ask a question pertaining to that, what type of anxiety were you feeling upon realizing this? Even the uncertainty of not necessarily knowing if you have it, and then having to realize that I may have to have a difficult conversation with somebody to inform them, and there's no telling how they're going to respond. Two things. How was your anxiety surrounding that, if you had any at all? And two, how did you find the strength to do that? So
remember, this is why we're in London, and I'm like at this time I'm trying to figure out, and because no one can say anything, I'm like, well, maybe it's not true. So I get to America. I'm 26, and I remember going to a dermatologist, and I got tested, not for that. It was actually regarding something else I was experiencing. I had a hair issue with my scalp for a few years. And so, and I remember asking them, because I do feel like I had a sore, and he looked at it, and he was a dermatologist, and he actually confirmed it. So I think like that's the time where I really accepted that. And I was probably about 26 at that time. And that's when it really like dawned on me. And it was just like, how do you tell people? Like, I just felt so disgusted, so embarrassed, especially because I didn't take precautions earlier on or really take it seriously, and felt a bit frustrated because it wasn't confirmed. And, I really deal with, the perfectionism, being rejected and shame.
Right.
And so, why would I want to tell anyone? Why?
I appreciate that part, right? I appreciate the whole response. I really appreciate that one, because I think that's what people really feel whenever something like that, as I say, pops up in their life is, oh, I don't want to tell anybody this. And that's a tough mental, moral battle to really have to come forward and say, look, man, or look, girl, I got to talk to you.
Yeah. So I didn't tell anyone. I still had sex, and I didn't. And I remember, I'm just that person. I just can't hold anything in and lie, and I can't. And it weighed so heavy. And I remember telling one person I told after we had sex, and oh my God, I they were just so confused, so scared. And they were asking me all these questions and I couldn't answer. And I was so apologetic and I just felt so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else before that. I don't think we didn't have intercourse. It was oral sex. He gave me oral sex. And then I told them like a few months later. And
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, I guess for me at the time, I wasn't shedding. So why would I tell anyone? I didn't have any sores. I didn't have anything like that. So why would I? And I remember telling that person, they were devastated and wouldn't talk to me again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we actually like developed a friendship. And we actually ended up being friends again. And after a while, acquaintances, they were devastated. Oh my God. They were devastated.
If I can ask, and you can easily say no to this, did he end up contracting?
No, none of them did.
Okay. It would not impact how I see you or anything of our relationship or anything of the sort, but it's just, that is a fear that a lot of people, I would imagine, have, is that if you were to ever do something with someone that has genital herpes, that you got it. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the biggest myths that surround this is that, understand, like with most STDs, there has to be some level of transfusion between the two bodies for anything to be shared. If the person is asymptomatic at that time, nothing's going to happen.
Well, actually, maybe not, because you can still shed and not be asymptomatic. Okay. So you may not have a sore or anything like that, but you can still shed. Okay.
I actually stand corrected on that. Thank you.
Yeah. So they were devastated. I told someone else I'd slept with, and they took it really hard. And one more person, and they were okay. Okay. I just told them, I just didn't know what to tell you. I just couldn't. It's like, well, you should have, and why didn't you? But they were really actually understanding. Like, as I'm talking about it now, like the ones that I did and didn't tell them and told them after, they're really forgiving towards me. Like I'm actually very lucky.
You know, what's interesting is I get that, though. I get that if you genuinely built up a care for somebody, I could see that when that's brought to you, you process it very quickly, you know, and you go through all 5 stages immediately and reach that level of acceptance to say, you know, okay, what are we going to do? Approach it with more of a we mindset instead of a ignorant, I don't like you, I don't want to talk to you mindset, which at the same time, though, that's also relatively appropriate as well. But I'm glad that you have had partners that have been understanding and cooperative throughout this ordeal. So, and I think the last time was, you know, the person who was absolutely devastated, and I vowed I would not do that again. And I didn't. I haven't. Of course, I'm abstinent now, but I probably had, you know, some other people I did sleep with after. I remember one. So talking about telling, I do remember telling someone, and they did not want to have sex with me. How did you deal with that? That was tough. At that point, I hadn't taken my power back at that point. And because I hadn't taken my power back and I was allowing them to dictate my worth, I felt dirty. I felt unlovable. I felt worthless. And then I remember another person, and I was just so scared. And I was like, that's cool. That's okay. And they were cool. And I think experiences like that help you along the way to deal with that shame and that anxiety. I think my biggest one is, oh my God, telling my mom. Oh. I told my mom. Okay. Please elaborate on that one for me, if you don't mind. I don't even remember why or how it came about. Maybe I was having a bad time or a bad moment. I don't know why, but I just felt like, I think, again, it goes back to that heaviness. Because my friends knew. There were some of my friends who knew. But my mum didn't know. And I was like, I think I should tell my mum. Okay. I think I should tell my mum. So anyone who's listening on this, like, I think she's the only family member that knows. So yeah, that was hard. And she just was very like, thank you for telling me. Excellent. Yeah. So those are the hard moments. Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. Who else I know you shared it with some partners. You shared it with your mother.
Mm-hmm.
You've shared it with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when you shared it with me, I remember shrugging my shoulders saying, okay, we continued our conversation as usual.
Yeah.
And then I remember saying, thank you for telling me. I definitely see that as a sign of trust that you would bring that to me. And it actually deepened our relationship.
Yeah.
Who else have you told?
Just friends along the way. And which actually some of the friends, when I think about it, the guy's response, like when I think about some of my guy friends and we're having a conversation, I remember a really close friend of mine and I told him and he was so supportive. Like, this is not you. These things happen.
Right.
You're not dirty. Like, don't let anyone put you down for that.
Right.
And I think as a woman coming from a guy, that was really encouraging and really helpful. And then just sometimes it would drop with other friends and girlfriends and they would be supportive. But it's funny that not that the women weren't supportive, the men were too, but I feel like it was more powerful because they were the opposite sex.
Right, the opposite sex that you obviously being heterosexual have an interest in. So those are the ones that could really affect how you view yourself internally. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad they were supportive.
And in conversations with friends and people, you just realize actually how common it is.
That's the part I was waiting on. I would liken it, if I could liken it to anything, having, of course, not experienced it, is the miscarriage myths. And how miscarriages occur so often. But when it happens to a woman, you get that. And I'll only say that because my wife, of course, had one, which she's open about. That's why I don't mind sharing that. But when it happens, you feel as if something's wrong with you. And you find out through talking to people that, oh, this is more common than I ever would have thought. And so I'm glad to hear that you had a similar experience in talking with people about genital herpes, just how many people are living with this and dealing with this. And God, I can only imagine how many people are probably dealing with it in silence.
Yeah. And that's what I don't want people to do. I don't want people to be in silence. I don't want people speaking to someone and they're going to be, on the podcast and talking, part 2 of this, which is a life coach. And I found out that people are, suicidal.
I could imagine so, because they immediately feel as if
their life is over.
Family. Right.
And you just have to get educated. You have to know, you have to understand. Like, of course, one of the things that does, I have to be honest, I might not be able to have a vaginal birth. If I'm having a breakout, the baby can't come out through the canal, right? You've got to have a cesarean. And so you feel guilty because, those are based on choices I made. And, some of those choices were reckless. They weren't good. And so it's like you still have to face and live with. I think it's the fact because, herpes, says it's lifetime, but, I always believe in healing. But that you have to live with this. And so you get a reminder. Like, I haven't had an outbreak in a long time. I had one a few months back. And I just felt so down and so mad because it was like, I forgot. I was like, you again? Like, why are you here? Like I haven't seen you forever. Like, why are you back? Like, what are you doing here? And you just be like, oh, okay, you again. And so, you get that reminder at the beginning, but you have to take slow and you have to be gentle with yourself, right? Because sometimes it can be really tiring and stuff when you have an outbreak. And so you just have to go easy on yourself and things like that. But yeah, we're not alone. We're not alone. And that's why I really want to do this. Because, genital herpes doesn't have a face. Like, you can't look at someone. You can't look at me and tell me I have genital. You can't. Oh, she's beautiful. She's a great.
I'm glad to hear you say it, because I was just about to say the same thing.
She's fun.
For those that see Bianca in real life, Bianca is stunning. Bianca turns heads. She pulls a lot of attention. And so you would never look at her and have any sort of inkling of a thought.
Mm-hmm. And that goes back to one of the things that is so important. Mm-hmm. Is now I know that I have it and now I'm educated about it. Mm-hmm. It really makes you think about STDs. And so again, I'm celibate. I always tell people, Justin, we worked in a hospital together. When you would see those charts, and we're not even in a medical hospital, and you would see charts and you would see
what they had, and you're like, whoa, really?
And you're like, to me, it was just like, wait a minute, we're not in a regular hospital. Like, why am I seeing this so often? Yep. And so it's just a reminder. Like, I think people have a conversation. It's like, well, you got to make sure you you get an STD test before having sex. And people are like, why? I'm like, are you crazy? Like, do you not know?
You should probably do it.
If I know that I lied and was deceptive, I know there's people out there that are doing it.
I would even go a step further, Bianca. You pride yourself, even from a younger age, of having authenticity and vulnerability. There are many people in this world who do not do that. Even with you, even with those being foundations that you stand upon, there were time periods when you wavered. Like, I'm not going to say this. I'm not going to bring this forward. And I would be willing to classify you as a pretty damn good person. So that being said, I could imagine the number of people who are out there that would not say a thing, especially considering about how it's not only so common, but it's also one that is not fatal. So a lot of people would say nothing. So I agree with you. It's as scary as the conversation may be to have with someone about, hey, no, you need to get tested before it needs to be had. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. For your safety and for theirs.
Right. For all parties involved. Guys, sex is an agreement between two people. It really is. And agreements in any other aspect of life, agreements have contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Your test is a contract. But if I can ask you, what really helped you get through?
Of course, acceptance.
Okay.
Starting with what I caused and the pain I caused. I probably only ever caused pain like that one other time in my life to people. And because it's betrayal, right? And
it feels like it, yes.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, that was the first step. And, having to get honest and be honest and realize that, wait, I'm not going to do this. This is real. So beginning that thing of acceptance and acknowledge and not being in denial. And I think not around the same time, but no, it wasn't the same time. A few years later, just really working on myself and getting closer to God and understanding my worth. And my worth is not in, genital herpes does not define me. That's not who I am.
Correct.
It's something that I have. And that's what goes back to taking the power back. I'm no less of a person because I have genital herpes.
Correct.
Recognizing there may be some people that may not be okay with it. Like I talked about before, getting my education and really understanding it instead of making it this thing that, oh my God, is with you for life, that you're just dirt. So getting the facts and knowing what I have to do and not allowing it to define me and being confident, like, that's your choice. And I'm still dope. Like, it's not, oh, that's your choice. And, oh, God, that really means I'm trash. I'm worthless. Like, no one wants me. I think that having that confidence, I think the way you speak about it and having the confidence changes how people respond to you.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot.
That power back. And it's like, it's presented as an option. This is what it is. Go get your education. And you decide, I'm cool. If you're not, that's cool. Like, either way, we're cool, but it's important for you to be informed. So
where would you say you are now?
June
10th, 2020. Where are you now?
I'm on this podcast sharing with the world and taking an even braver step. I was watching, this is actually Stephanie that I was following, and she was a life coach for people with genital herpes. And I was like, oh my God, she on here just sharing it with the world. And so I just happened to come upon her, like I was looking at shame stories of No More Shame. And then I was like, well, let me see who else is out here. I, hashtag genital herpes. And I'm like, oh, people out here sharing now? Like, it's cool. So in my generation, you don't speak out. You don't. And of course, in the Black community, definitely in the Caribbean community, you're not telling everyone your business. And so that's where I am now, is like, I don't care because it's bigger than me. That's where I am. Mm-hmm. This is bigger than me. This is not about, well, if I share, like, guys are going to know freehand. Well, good. You know freehand. Like, you are very well informed. Now you can make a very informed choice. So it's not where I am. It's not about me. This episode it's not about me. This is helping, and I'm really hopeful that it sets other people free. And you might not tell the world, but you may begin to take your power back. If anything, I want you to take your power back. If you're listening to this and you have that diagnosis, and if you're with someone or you meet someone that you're more loving and you're more understanding and you're not, looking at them as dirty. So that's where I am. It's bigger than me. And we're recording this. And then I think when it actually comes out, I'll be like, I feel like a weight will be lifted.
That is exactly what I would want my friend to feel. Is that weight off her shoulders and that freedom that comes with being who you really are, instead of what the world thinks a person is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you could give people what you've learned along this journey, what would it be?
There is so much power and importance in being informed of your health, sexual health, physical health. So you can decide what to do with it, like having a diagnosis and then educating yourself on the diagnosis, and not allowing the world to get you informed. I'm talking about good information. And then in regards to the genital herpes, that especially to women, men don't mind having sex with people with genital herpes, and nor do women. But I actually want to speak to the women a bit more, because I feel like that's who I can speak to. And men will be in shame, but I feel like the women's shame is a bit different, because, we have to deal with so much sexually and on that front. And you don't have to settle. You don't have to settle for the person who accepts you because you have genital herpes and he didn't have a problem with it, but you don't really like him.
You're expressing that the women can still live your life and own yourself, own your power, and really get that self-esteem back that you feel it takes from you, instead of just going for the first person that takes it and saying, I'm not going to find anyone else. Let me take him or her, and that's it. But actually, you can still live a normal life, which includes normal life's choices and discretions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, you don't have to settle. There are people that are willing to be people with HIV.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's not a death sentence. It's only a death sentence if you allow it to be. So yeah, please take your power back.
How would you help people get to this point?
Me?
How would you? What could you do to even help people get to this strength that you have discovered?
I mean, my strength comes from God, from the Lord.
Okay.
And that comes from knowing that he loves me just as I am, and actually receiving that and believing that. And there is so much power in love, right? And it just wasn't from him. It was from people forgiving me. It was from, I feel a bit teary. It was like from people forgiving me. It was from friends encouraging me and not looking at me any different and empowering me. That's love. And that all comes from God. And so because of that empowers me, that I am loved and I love me with all the imperfections.
I've always said it's our imperfections that make us perfect.
I like that.
And so that the differences that exist in us, be it whether you see them as strengths or flaws, those are the things that make you the perfect version of yourself. I love that you had that support network of people that were willing to look past a small portion of you to see the real you and just how amazing and important and influential the real you can be, instead of letting one thing define the person that you are. And I think that gave you the strength to not let it define who you are.
Yeah.
You're strong. You're very strong. It's not easy to be strong in this world, but you found a way.
Thank you.
So that was a mouthful, wasn't it? I am so happy I finally got to share that all with you guys. I hope that the information I shared on my personal story and experience has really impacted you. And if you're someone who does have genital herpes and you're hiding, that you can take off that mask and really face it. And if you're not, that you are now more aware. I really hope that you are able to share this information with family and friends. Please tag the podcast on Authentic Wednesday Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. As I always say, you never know who may need to hear this or may need this story. I'm assuming it might just be private a bit more, but I hope that it can really go public and really break that stigma of genital herpes and change people's lives. Thank you so much again, as always, for listening to the show. If you connected with what you just heard, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. You can stay connected by following our Instagram, Authentic Wednesday Podcast, and visiting our website, AuthenticWednesday.com. Remember, authenticity is a journey, not a destination.